Welcome to episode 77 of the Kids with Big Emotions podcast, formerly known as Calm Nights, Strong Days. I am your host, Andy Clark, and I just got off of uh, a call with a really good friend of mine. And as we're talking, I'm like, oh my God, I need to do a podcast episode on this. So, what we were talking about was how stress sneaks into your body without you realizing it. For those of you that have been listening to this podcast, you know that I have a cough. I had COVID in July. This is now September, and my cough isn't going away. I have done everything that I know of. I have such a large tool bag when it comes to coughs because this has been something that has plagued me for, oh gosh, 20, 30. I think over 30 years ago in my early 20s is when I was going to, I kept getting coughs and they wouldn't go away. And I would try everything. I mean, any homeopathic remedy that you have out there, I've probably tried. Anything that is out there, and I couldn't get rid of it. Could not get rid of this cough. And anytime that I do get sick, I get a cough. And they fascinatingly, like some of them just hang on and hang on and hang on. And it was only a couple of years ago, once I started diving into IFS, internal family systems therapy, going through therapy. As I was going through therapy, my cough went away. It started decreasing the intensity and it went away as I started dealing with some of my stressors, some of my protectors. If you go to episode 44 to 50, I dive deep into IFS and explain all about your protectors and how things that have happened in your life, protectors kick in. And I have a protector for a cough. You're going to hear me cough a lot probably during this episode because it's what I'm talking about. And that protector is probably going to kick in a lot. Now, I used to think this was woohoo. I have a book called Heal Your Body, which is by Louise Hay. Heal Your Body. And it is really fascinating. And I got this like probably 20 years ago. It has a whole list of all kinds of different ailments, like cycles, inflammation, healing, cancers, kidney problems, what are we here? Um, ingrown toenails, injuries, insomnia, all of these little things. It goes all alphabetical order and it tells you what the emotion is that is related with that injury. And I thought it was kind of interesting, kind of neat, but I never really gave it much thought. I was like, this stuff's all kind of woohoo. Thing is that the more that I have gotten like coaching with clients, and I started thinking back to clients I used to have. So I remember when I was personal training, I had this client who was in HR and their company was downsizing and she was having to not lay off. She was having to package out, let go of such good friends of hers, people who she had worked with for 15, 20 years. She was packaging out and she was a disaster. And I'm saying that in like a way, like she was just emotionally struggling with this so much. Yeah, disaster is not the right word. She felt probably like a disaster inside. Her emotions were all over. It was so hard for her. And there were times where she could not tie her shoes. Her husband had to tie her shoes at home in order for her to come to our training sessions at the gym. And her husband was like, "Why are you going?" She goes, "Because I'll be better once I've worked with Andy." And I didn't know at all what I was doing with clients then, as far as the mental side. I was personal trainer. I was working her out, but we would stop and we would chat. And I used to be a massage therapist before I was a trainer. And I would massage her neck because she couldn't move her neck. She could not look left or right. The pain was excruciating. Her whole neck had seized. And by the end of the session, she would be laughing a little bit. She would be able to work out and we would be able to do stuff. Not at all to the intensity that we could do when she wasn't under all of the stress, but she could move. She could actually, and that was our goal. Our goal was to get her so that she could function through her day. And I had no idea then. Like, I knew that she was stressed and I knew that she was struggling, like that her muscles were probably seizing from the stress, but I didn't realize the magnitude that stress can have on our health. And so this episode today is for you to understand your kids, which I'll go into kid examples, as well as adults. So for you listening to this, I'm so sorry for coughing throughout all this. Um, for you listening to this, it might hit home for you. It might be a spouse, it might be colleagues you're working with, and you may see this in your child. So for me, there's been so many different episodes now that I understand this of going through things. My cycle was completely off growing up, completely thrown off. When I was 16, I was put on the pill, which um, anybody that wants information on all of that and helping your child, I know some amazing podcast episodes on people that I would highly recommend for you to listen to start understanding that. And our medical system, as they do, they're trained in reactive triage medicine. Reactive triage, in order to get your cycles back, is to get you on the pill, but they're not fixing the root cause. And I've had cycle issues my whole life, like my whole entire life. We can get PCOS, can be a lot. There's a lot of emotional ties, a lot of stress involved with PCOS, hormonal, throwing your hormones all over the place. And I know there was a period of time too with me where I had shoulder pain, neck pain, this tightness in my neck. I did everything. I was personal training at the time. I was going to chiropractor, acupuncture, massage therapy. Um, I was doing anything and everything that I could read about and understand about to try to loosen my neck. And it was only once I dealt with some of the emotional stuff that I was working through, things from my childhood, that neck pain went away. Also, interestingly, got another phenomenal story on that is I am highly, highly sensitive to smells, to synthetic fragrances. And so we had figured this out. My son, my one son, and I. My other son and my husband are fine. They don't react at all to synthetic fragrances, just one of my kids and myself. And so we had everything, all of our cleaning products, all of our body products are non-toxic, non-fragrance free, all of that. And so we ran out of dish soap once, and my husband had a palm olive lying around. He uses it. He does some cooking and barbecuing for some community stuff with at work. And so we put the palm olive. As soon as those drops went in the water, as soon as they did, I instantly felt my neck tightened. I felt this feeling going from my shoulders all the way up my neck to the bottom of my skull, instantly got tight. My sinuses, my nose started dripping, and I got angry. My husband and I were in the middle of a totally normal conversation, absolutely simple conversation. And instantly, anger and rage came out. My shark brain came out, and I started yelling at him. And we looked at each other, and I was like, whoa. Like, it was so interesting because we're not surrounded by so many synthetic fragrances that stress. So that was a stress on my body. That stress on my body hit so hard. And I was like, wow, I wonder how much of my neck pain as well before used to be from synthetic fragrances, because I worked in gyms, cleaning products, bleaches, all the smells of all of the disinfectants, all the colognes and perfumes that people wear in gyms to mask their BO, the fabric softeners. I used to have a client that used to rub fabric softener in her hair in order to stop the static. And I remember after training her, I'd be drained. And so it is fascinating once you start understanding your stressors. So are they emotional, mental? Are they physical? My son as well in JK. Yes. In at senior kindergarten. We met with the teacher in October. It was the regular like teacher things. And she's like, he's been having a rough time this past month. And like outbursts, getting angrier more, all this stuff. And I'm like, that's interesting, because he also started wearing 3 pairs of pants to school and 3 shirts. And I was like, what phase is he going through for this? And so I asked her, I'm like, have you changed a cleaning product in here? And she said, yes, we have this really nice pine scent. And I was like, oh, that's what it is. So these stressors was hitting him emotionally where he was getting angry. Febreze, oh my gosh. So the stories I could tell, it's just crazy. Just for me, not even my clients. And I'll get into some other clients too. But my my husband knows this, and he felt that he needed to Febreze his hockey equipment, but he thought that he safeguarded it from my son and I by doing it outside and tying it in a garbage bag. He put it in the basement on a shelf in this garbage bag, all of his hockey equipment that had been sprayed with Febreze. We came in from outside, our family. My son and I, instantly when we walked in, we were like, what's that smell? This was in the basement. We're on the main floor, right? Like the stairs to the basement is on the other side of the house. And we were like, what's that smell? What do we smell? And we were all happy. We'd come in from being like on a creek walk. We were all like really relaxed and happy. My son started turning to his brother and started hitting him and yelling at him. And I'm at my husband and I'm like, what's that smell? I'm getting like so angry. I was so upset. I'm like, get that out of here now. What is in here? And he instantly knew. He's like, oops. And he ran down to the basement and grabbed the garbage bag, got it outside. And then we started like getting, we took all of our HEPA filters that we have in all of our bedrooms, brought them all downstairs to the basement to get that smell out of there. And yeah, it was a tough day. My shoulders started getting tight. I was moody that afternoon. I got exhausted, completely drained. And yeah, my other son too. Like it was just fascinating how when we are triggered by a stress, be it emotional stress or a physical stress, how it affects our body. There is an amazing book called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, doctor, and he's an MD. It actually came out in 2015, and it's one that is in my circles of traumas and emotional traumas and all in the IFS therapy, like talked about all the time. It is phenomenal how with everybody who works with, like, so when I'm working with a client with IFS, when we're trying to see what part is kicking in and protecting somebody in a certain way, there's times where it holds in certain bodies. A client I worked with yesterday, they felt like they had a hole like under their sternum. Some of it's in their heart. Sometimes it's in their throat. Sometimes it's in their shoulders, in their back. It's in different places, wherever that protective trauma was stored. When I was working in massage therapy, we were taught in massage school that sometimes people might have outbursts and cry or want you to get off of an area on their body. And that's most likely where they are holding traumas or holding emotions. So really important to keep that in mind. I know with my son, he gets headaches. That's part of his. I know that he is emotionally taxed. There might be a synthetic fragrance or a smell when he's got headaches. I know that there is some sort of a stressor with him when his head starts hurting. He also gets stomach issues. So when he was a baby, projectile vomits, huge. I now know that was stress in his system. Eczema, he had the worst case of eczema that our doctor saw. I know that was stress on his body. Once in school, he would say his tummy hurt. His tummy really hurt. You get this a lot with kids where their tummy hurts. That's quite often a sign that something's stressing them out. Headaches, tummy, they're getting really tired. So you might see the emotional side as well, where like the shark is out, or, Nemo, the anxiety, the worrying about everything, or the turtle shutting down. And you might find when you see those things, if you ask your child, where do you feel that? What do you feel in your body? They might be able to tell you. They might say, my tummy hurts, or I feel my neck or my head hurts, or something. Like they'll tell you something in their body if they're able to. Not everybody is able to. But if you start connecting those dots with your kids often and say, okay, I know that you can't always tell something in your body, but start taking note before you start getting angry. Where do you feel it in your body? Do you start feeling tighten your neck? Do you start feeling that you're clenching your fists? Do you start feeling a feeling in your tummy or your head? Like, does something start feeling in your body before you get anxiety, before you get, your Nemo brain, before your shark brain, you start getting, angry and lashing out? Do you feel these things in your body? Because stress really does hold in the body. And it can get to such health issues that I have a client, um, and they, in their early to mid 20s, started having blood clots, hypertension, um, sight in their one eye. And this was, where as well, if you go back in these episodes to where I was doing this as burnout with adults, and I was interviewing people, like people ending up in the hospital, somebody lost the sight in their one eye until they started decreasing their stressors and emotions in their body. Um, it's just fascinating, all of the medical issues and struggles and traumas we have. Hashimoto's, autoimmune diseases can all kick in because of these stressors and emotions that are being held in our body. um it's just unbelievable that I was like, I need to do an episode about this because you need to be aware of this. And interestingly, I did know that, like, I've been researching IFS therapists for me to go to, um and start going to one myself to start really diving into some of my deeper stuff. I've peeled so many layers of my onion of emotions and stress. And when you do that, you need to take a pause every once in a while because you can't do it 24/7. Like, you need a break from working on yourself sometimes, and you need time to implement all the stuff you've learned. And I've gotten to that point where I feel that I'm ready to peel some more layers of that onion, some more protectors from my life, dive into some deep exiles that have really been holding some deep rooted emotions. I feel I'm ready for that. And I believe that this cough of mine, which is so fascinating that it's not here as I'm doing this, which means I'm probably onto something, is that it means that I'm ready to peel more layers, dive deeper into some of these emotions, and start talking with these protectors and diving into these protectors that are really causing this cough in me that is affecting everything in my life. Like, I'm not working out as much because of the cough. Um, like, it just affects all. I'm coughing all the time. I'm struggling with conversations with people because I'm coughing. So it's super fascinating when we start really paying attention to the cues in our body and the cues in our kids' bodies. Um, with kids, honestly, like, you'll start seeing acne can be kicking in because of, like, of a lot of emotions and stress, which that stress can be nutritional. It can be from environmental toxins. It can be from stuff they're actually already using on their face or their body. It can be from, yeah, nutrition. Pop soda for those Americans is a huge one. Um, a lot of the toxins or sugars that they're having as well could definitely be giving them acne. But if there's somebody that's getting acne and they have a very clean diet, the next thing I would dive into is their emotions. What are the stressors that are happening for them? What's going on in their life? How are things? Like, where are they at? All of these things, like, start taking note. If they're getting a lot of headaches, if they're feeling anxiety, if their cycles are off, if they get PCOS, if the doctor thinks that they should be putting your child on the pill, oh gosh, that's where I would start diving into, okay, why are their cycles really off? Why are their hormones messed up? That's where we see it in kids. Like, a lot of these kids, we know, like, these big emotions when they're in younger middle school, but and once they get their period and we start seeing this crazy change in them, like, in their cycles, in the pain around their cycles, that is another sign of things that have, probably, if you start looking back, signs of them. Did they have anxiety growing up? Did they have traumas growing up? One or the other. Like, they might have. How hard were they on themselves? Did they have a lot of perfectionism, a lot of pushing themselves a lot, or a lot of shutting down a lot of shark brain, a lot of turtle brain, a lot of that Nemo, um, Nemo's dad, Marlin, the clownfish brain? Do they have that? Like, are they having struggles already before they get their cycle? And then when they have their cycle, if there's a lot of pains, a lot of irregularities in their cycles, that's just another sign of their body, right? Um, it's just fascinating. So fascinating once we start actually connecting the dots and realizing that there's a lot going in. So, with this as well, one thing to truly understand about this is that our stress system manages 50 hormone responses: sleeping, waking, mood regulation, ability to think, cognitive functioning, our executive functioning abilities, um, uh, are the way that our body metabolizes food, cholesterol, blood pressure, sleeping, waking. Um, there's so many. There's 50 different responses in our body. And so when we're stressed, whatever the stress is, like I'm saying, could be synthetic fragrances. It could be just the start of school is really tough for kids. It could be the neurodiversities, the way that the brain thinks different, executive functioning skills. It could be traumas. It could be the perfectionism, the list goes on. It could be physical stuff. They might be like really physically pushing themselves too much, which can happen with some high school kids when their body can't recover from how much they're pushing it. All of these stressors, like these are all stressors. And it's really important for us to start understanding that anytime these stressors happen, they affect your child's sleep, and they affect the way that all those hormones heal and repair in their sleep, those 50 hormones that your stress system is in charge of, and how much they're being taxed during the day. And then if there's any gut issues going on with that child or adult, then those hormones actually struggle to be distributed throughout the body as well and do what they need to do. So it's this whole vicious cycle. And it's really important to understand, like, there's this deep science into why the stressors affect parts of our body. And there's even science into how we hold emotions in our DNA, how we hold emotions in our cells, and how our cells react to that. And we can go into Louise's Hayes study in how she actually relates where each health ailment, what emotion that actually relates to. When you read it, you're like, oh yeah, I'm feeling that emotion. Um, so it really is important to be working on yourself, understanding, connecting all these dots, and noticing them. That's the first step. Noticing them. And noticing that if you've been going to chiropractors, acupuncturists, massage therapists, all these people to help with the aches and pains, you've been going to doctors and naturopaths. This is a big one for me too, because I go to naturopaths for certain things, autoimmune, and my hormones being completely off. And I could not make headway with the amazing naturopath and my gut too until I started working on the stressors and my emotions and my traumas and processing all of my stuff because of my neurodiverse brain, the way that I perceive things, the way that I am very sensitive to things, the way that I take in emotions from a lot of things. I had to work through and understand and deal with a lot of those things. I had a lot of, I don't like the word limiting beliefs per se, because they were beliefs that came up because of how I perceived things from my emotional and mental state at the time as a child, how they really did affect a lot of things, the way that I felt, the way that I see things, the way that I took in so many emotions. And until I started really dealing with those, could my naturopath make headway with me? So if you are with the best practitioners and they're still stuck on things, that's where I'd really dive into that emotional piece. So when I'm working with clients, like, so for instance, the client with the hypertension, she's neurodiverse, ADHD, such an amazing person. I love her to death. And it really depends on what she needs on the day. When we meet in a session, she may need for us to be diving into some crucial conversation strategies. We may be diving into ways that she could just manage her stress responses now. We might be diving into some IFS strategies. We might be diving into some executive functioning stuff to help her with the way that her brain is always, focusing elsewhere, struggling to focus on certain things and taking up so much bandwidth. Her perception, her inhibition, like all of these different executive functioning skills. So it really depends. Like when we start a session, I'm not like, oh yeah, we're going to dive deep into these emotional struggles that you've had um, because of how deeply you feel things right away. Like that's not, nobody's ready for that right away. We need to go at the pace that it works for somebody. So knowing that if you are acknowledging this now in either yourself or your child, you or your child may or may not be ready to start tackling this right away. This is my one child, and it's so hard to watch as a parent when you're working on all of your stuff and you're seeing the improvements and you're seeing how much better you feel, and you see that your child is not ready to deal with those emotions yet. It's hard. And it's taken me a while to learn that I need to let him go at his pace. But I'm like, there's always other things that we can focus on. So we're focusing on finding that with him, focusing on the executive functioning pieces with him. He's now able to then bring in those stress pieces of breathing. When he's actually in a moment, sometimes now he breathes. Whereas before he could not stop himself to breathe. Right. And so when his stomach or his headache is happening, I'm like, okay, there's certain stressors he'll acknowledge, synthetic fragrances, that he might be sometimes that he's hungry or thirsty or dehydrated and needs to be hydrated again. And sometimes he won't acknowledge it at all, which is where I'll come in with like, hey, let's make some lemonade because I know that he'll drink it without him even knowing what I'm doing. Whereas sometimes he's in a state of being actually open to knowing. This is with adults too, right? Like working with adults is where like we may know the tools, but when we're in that stress state, we may not be able to implement those tools right away. So, and we may not be ready to hit all the traumas that we've had in our lives or the things that have deeply, deeply hurt us or affected us in our life. We might not be ready yet. There are other things, though, that can prepare your stress system to become stronger so that you can become ready, so that you can start doing some of the base things to start getting yourself ready for that and knowing and understanding that you're going at your own pace, right? I hope that helps. Okay. So just to recap on what we talked about today, right? We hold emotions in our body, and most of us don't realize it, right? Because they might be physical things like tight necks or stuff that we've just had for so many years that we're like, well, that's just always been there. We might always have gotten headaches or always have gotten tummy aches. So we just think it's something that's always there and not relating it. New things might come up like PCOS, like hormonal struggles, like acne, like different aches and pains happening in our body, or a cough might appear. And we might not relate that with our emotions. So, what I would encourage you to do is to start thinking about first when an emotion comes up in you, stop and think, where am I feeling this? And you may not at all be able to relate where it is at the moment. You might not. You also might be so heavily in that emotion that you can't. So, afterwards, once you're out, try to think, did I feel anything in my body then or before it, like the emotions kicked out, before the shark brain kicked out or the clownfish brain kicked out or the turtle, like I hid in my shell? What was I feeling in my body? Start seeing where that is. If you have reoccurring pains or aches, or your child has reoccurring pains, aches, medical issues, start thinking about what stressors are around when they flare up and start seeing what's happening with them around that time. It's really, really fascinating. The Body Keeps the Score book, I'll add the link in the show notes, as well as the Louise Hay Heal Your Body book. I'll add those into the show notes for you. This is a really slow go. I'm going to tell you, like I've had some clients for years, and it takes us sometimes like after year one that they're ready. And I have other clients that come to me and they're like, I want to dive in. Like sometimes I'll work with the parents. They're like, okay, I know that I have some crap that I need to deal with. Let's deal with that first so that I know that I can be a better parent. And then I'll have the tools or the actual ability to then be able to help my child when they're in their emotional state and they want to dive into it fast. Some parents don't want to acknowledge at all that they're also struggling because their focus is, or they know that they're struggling, but they want to help their child first, and they're putting themselves further on the back burner, which is an episode for another one, actually, what I should do. Definitely on that one. Yeah, I need to do an episode on that where you are seeing as a parent that sometimes always putting your child first and not making sure you're okay is actually not helping your child, because we need you to be in your dolphin brain. We need you to be okay and have the biggest bandwidth in order to be able to help your child. Your child also may be so empathic that they can feel your emotions and your struggles when they're going on. I know mine are. That it was important for me to deal with mine. And my husband as well is working on that himself, which I'm so proud of him for, because the kids can feel when he's off and when he's struggling, and it affects them. So super important. And I need to do an episode on that. But today's episode is all about stress sneaking into your body without you realizing it. Let me know. Hop into our Facebook group, the Kids with Big Emotions Facebook group that I do have. There's a lot of other parents there, and I am going to make sure that I post something that week of the I'm going to write that down. Post asking where people feel emotions. I will ask that because I'm doing this a couple weeks ahead of time. I'm going to ask people that week, once this airs, where do they feel their emotions? And it'll be interesting. Come into that group, tell us what you feel, tell us what you see. You'll see that you're not alone. You'll see that so many other people feel things or have health issues, autoimmune. Hashimoto's is a big one for a lot of moms. So let us know in the group. We'd love to have you. And exciting news. My website is up. So definitely please go and click on the link for my website. I'm super excited about it. The website is up. Click the link, andyklark.com, Andy with an I. And you'll see that I'm going to be starting a membership site. Once I have 10 people on the website, on the waiting list, I'm going to start a membership site, which is where I'm going to teach. You can ask me stuff and I will create lessons for it. I'm also going to, once I really see what you guys are wanting and needing, I will create courses for you in that membership site. It's cheap. It's dirt cheap. Check the website, the prices on it. I made it so that it's something that pretty much any parent can afford. And you can afford on a monthly basis without thinking about it, so that you can still get the support that you need. And I can create courses and everything in there for you to go through to help your kids, so that you can learn how to really parent them and manage them. I do want to just make it really, really clear that in a membership site, I'm not able to give as personalized at the start. I will be. So if you're one of those 10 people at the start, I will be able to give you very personalized attention. So join it at the start for sure. As the group grows, I won't be able to give as personalized, detailed help to people as it grows and gets bigger. I will try my best and I will give you the best of my abilities, but you'll be able to start taking accountability. It's up to you as to how often you come in to that group. And it's one-on-ones where I can really that's where I'll do the assessments for executive functioning assessments, and really figure out where your child is to really be tailoring them. And I can't do that in the membership group. So yeah, I'm really super excited about the membership group. So go onto my website, go into the Work With Me page, and check out that membership group. And yeah, first people that join it, you pretty much are going to get me one-on-one at the start while the group starts growing. So take advantage of that. Super excited. I will see you in the next episode.